IPO at 23 cents per share back in 2019, this Johor-based bakery company SDS Group has gone up more than 3 times. And recently, EPF has decided to up its stake in the company from 3% to over 5%, effectively becoming a substantial shareholder. This news caught my attention. To be fair, EPF buying more shares in a listed company isn't exactly news. These moves happen every now and then, but this one, it made me stop scrolling. Why? Because SDS is not a sexy tech stock. It's not a hot IPO or some eye-catching growth story. It's bread, cakes, buns. Everyday stuff you see at petrol stations and convenience stores. Nothing flashy, and yet the fact that EPF, with billions under management, chose to add more SDS stakes into their portfolio says something. It made me wonder, what do they see that the rest of us might be missing? So before we figure out why EPF is so interested, let's take a step back and understand the company EPF is betting on. Who is SDS? How did the family bakery from Johor grow into a listed company with both retail outlets and a wholesale distribution network? And what exactly are they doing today that got the attention of Malaysia's biggest investor? In 1987, two brothers, Tan Kim Seng and Tan Kim Chai, rolled up their sleeves and started baking in a small town of Masai, Johor. No fancy machines, no investors behind them, just flour, ovens and long hours. That little bakery would go on to become SDS Group Berhad, one of Johor's best-known bakery brands. For years, SDS grew quietly in Johor. If you live in JB, chances are you have celebrated a birthday with an SDS cake or dropped by one of their cafes for buns and coffee. Over time, they expanded to more than 30 outlets in Johor, then began making their way into the Klang Valley, setting up about 10 stores there. They weren't trying to be the Starbucks of bakeries. They stay practical, affordable, local, the kind of place where entire families could come in and pick up pastries without burning a hole in their pocket. But the real story of SDS isn't just in the retail outlets, it's in wholesale. That's the part of business most Malaysians don't see, but it makes up over 60% of their revenue today. SDS runs two brands here, Top Baker and Dailies. Top Baker is what you find in sundry shops and traditional outlets. Dailies is what you see in modern channels like hypermarkets, supermarkets, convenience stores, so on and so forth. They've built a massive distribution network. They pour across Peninsular Malaysia and a fleet of hundreds of delivery trucks crisscrossing the country every morning. So, every time you grab a bun from a petrol station or a Swiss roll from a convenience store rack, there's a good chance SDS made it, package it, and ship it. And that scale, producing in bulk, moving volume through established routes, is what gives SDS efficiency and profitability that many mom and pop bakeries simply cannot match. Now, just when you think SDS is content with breads and buns, they make a move that raised eyebrows. In August 2025, SDS announced they were buying something rather unusual. The bakery division of Mamee. Yes, the Mamee that gave us the iconic Mamee monster noodles and double-decker snacks. For 28 million ringgit, SDS is taking over Mamee's bakery plant in Plantong, Johor. Not just the land and buildings, but the entire production lines, machinery, and even the rights to produce London Roll and Tora Swiss rolls. Those affordable snack cakes that many Malaysians grew up with. These products are affordable, they are everywhere, and they last longer on the shelf than your average loaf of bread. So why is SDS doing this now? You see, Mamee had been running this plant for years, but bakery wasn't its core business. For SDS though, bakery is everything. They saw something Mamee didn't. The chance to plug these Swiss rolls directly into their already huge wholesale network. Each truck that used to deliver only bread can carry Swiss roll too. Same route, same product, higher margins. That's smart scaling. And there's another angle. Unlike fresh bread, which spoils quickly, these Swiss rolls have much longer shelf life. This means SDS can ship them further, even export them. For a company that's still largely Johor focused, this is a ticket to new markets. It's a way to stretch beyond their base without building entirely new infrastructure from scratch. So here's the tension point. SDS isn't just baking bread anymore. They are betting that Malaysians will keep buying cheap, nostalgic snack cakes, and that EPF, by investing more, believes this bet makes sense. That brings us to the million ringgit question. Why is a huge pension fund like EPF even attracted to a humble, tiny business like SDS? On the surface, it doesn't add up. EPF manages over 1 trillion ringgit. They can buy blue chip banks, global tech names, even entire plantations. Yet, here they are, putting more money into bread and buns. Not exactly glamorous. But let's zoom out. What do you think is the economic condition for a business like SDS to do well? More than 60% of their revenue comes from wholesale bakery products. Breads, buns, cakes, sold through hypermarkets, supermarkets, convenience stores and petrol stations. These aren't luxury items, they're everyday essentials. And who buys them? Ordinary Malaysian, most in the low to middle income group. And here's the psychology. When times are good, people might splurge on fancy cafes and artisanal sourdough, but when wallets tighten, bread and simple snack cakes suddenly look a lot more attractive. You can feed a family on SDS products for a fraction of the price of dining out. That's why in tough times, bakery demand doesn't fall off a cliff. If anything, it can hold steady, maybe even rise. And now, if you connect the dots, Malaysia's own economy is expected to grow slower in 2025 and 2026. Bank Negara's forecast has already been trimmed, and global institutions like the World Bank and IMF are warning of a broader slowdown. If that narrative for the Malaysian economy is correct, that the economy going to slow, then EPF's move into SDS makes even more sense. Let's build this case step by step. Globally, the signs are already flashing yellow. The World Bank trimmed its global growth outlook for 2025 to the low 2% range, one of the weakest since the global financial crisis. The IMF still puts it around 3%, but warns of risk from tariffs, geopolitical conflicts, and high debt levels. Basically, the world economy is still running, but it's jogging slower and slower. Now, let's zoom into Malaysia. After bouncing hard in 2024, growth is moderating. Bank Negara has guided 4 to 4.8% for 2025, but some analysts say it could dip to 3.9%. Exports are softer, especially with China slowing. Domestic demand is okay, but not on fire. And with high household debt, Malaysians already owe over 80% of GDP, consumers aren't exactly swimming in spending power. Put all this together and you get an economy that's, well, not in recession, but definitely cooling. When economies cool, many businesses suffer. Luxury retailers feel it first. High-end restaurants, they feel it next. But basic food, that's the last thing people cut. In fact, sometimes demand even shifts towards cheaper staples. We call this the trade-down effect. Instead of a 30 ringgit cafe brunch, families pick up a loaf of bread and buns from the supermarket. And that's exactly where SDS lives, in the budget-friendly, everyday consumption category. And the Mamee plant that they acquired that can make long shelf life products, they are easy to distribute nationwide and affordable enough to fit even tighter wallets. In other words, SDS isn't just recession-proof. They might even gain ground when other players are struggling. So when I look at the big picture, slower global growth, Malaysia easing into a softer 2026, and then look at what SDS sells and how they scale, the pieces line up. Bread and buns might not be exciting, but in a downturn, boring is often the safest place to be. And that's why EPF's investment read like a quiet signal. Don't chase hype, chase resilience. But resilience alone isn't enough. Just because a business sells essential doesn't automatically make it a great investment. Here's the key question. Is the company actually creating more value every time it grows? And the best way to measure that is with a number called ROCE, Return on Capital Employed. Oh, what? Don't worry, let me make this simple for you. Imagine your friend wants to open a bakery. He spends 500,000 ringgit to set up one outlet. At the end of the year, that outlet makes 100,000 ringgit profit. That's a 20% return on his investment. Pretty good, right? Now, let's say he opens a second bakery, spends the same 500,000, and that one also makes 100,000 ringgit. His overall return stays high. Every ringgit invested is working hard. That's how you build wealth. But what if he gets ambitious? Open a bigger, fancier cafe that costs 1 million ringgit and it still only makes 100,000 a year. Suddenly, his return drops to 10%. He doubled his spending, but the profit didn't scale with it. That's how businesses destroy value without even realizing it. So, return on capital employed is essentially how much more profit a business can squeeze out of the capital that is injecting into it. For SDS case, in the year 2020, they bring in around 192 million ringgit revenue, but only 4 million ringgit net profit. Margins, just a skinny 2%. If you were an investor back then, you'll probably think, yeah, okay, nice bakery, but not exactly printing cash. Fast forward to 2025. Revenue is now about 346 million ringgit. Not quite double, but Profits? They've jumped to over 33 million. That's an 8-fold increase. Margins have climbed to nearly 10%. In plain English, SDS is making way more money out of every ringgit of sales than they used to. And here's where ROCE comes in. Did they achieve that by borrowing heavily? No. Debt stay low. Did they blow cash opening dozens of fancy outlets? Also no. They only opened a handful of new stores. Instead, they squeezed more juice out of the orange they already had. 2 factories, a nationwide distribution network, and their fleet of delivery trucks. I think this is exactly what excites big investors like EPF. High ROCE tells you a company can reinvest its own profit at high returns, compounding wealth without needing to beg the banks for money. It's like a flywheel. Once it starts spinning, every extra loaf of bread or Swiss roll gives more bang for the same buck. Of course, high margin doesn't mean much if the company is bleeding cash. That's why we always say cash is king. So let's look at SDS Wallet. Over the past 5 years, this bakery didn't just grow on paper, it grew in cash. In 2025 alone, they generated over 50 million ringgit cash in operating cash flow. That's not accounting tricks, that's money actually coming into the business. Why does that matter? Imagine you're running a bakery and flour prices suddenly spike. If you've got cash, you can absorb the shock, keep the ovens running, and maybe even negotiate better bulk deals. But if you're drowning in debt, GG lor. Good game, Flabby! So what's the takeaway here? SDS has been managing its cash like a disciplined operator. They are not overextending, they are not over-borrowing. Oh yeah, and they also pay dividend. I think you're starting to see why this news caught my attention. So, after peeling back all these layers, the Johor bakery story, the wholesale engine, the Mamee acquisition, and EPF's quiet move, the bigger picture here is this. In investing, not all businesses are built to survive a slowdown. Some depends on consumer confidence, some on export demand, some on government stimulus. But then, they are the ones that just keep going because they serve everyday needs. Bread, buns, snacks, cakes. SDS is a perfect example of what we call a recession-proof business. It's a boring business, but it is a beautiful business. Bread and buns can be smarter than flashy tech. And the next time you see a Swiss roll at a petrol station, remember, behind that 2 ringgit snack is a strategy that just got the nod from Malaysia's biggest investor. And if you found this breakdown useful, do me a favor, hit the like button. It tells the YouTube gods this video is worth showing to more people. And of course, subscribe to the FAQ show if you want more stories like this. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.